Hello everyone, welcome to Heart in the Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cameron Bell, I'm your host as always, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to introduce my guest for this week, Mr. Alan Bradley. Bradders, thank you so much for coming on, a pleasure to have you, buddy. I think first time we've had you on this season.
Yeah, and you know I'm that kind of self-deprecating kind of chap. I just want to put on the record, Cammy, that, this is the first time this season things went okay in Sweden. I'll just leave it like that, but there could be a link here, yeah.
Yeah, there absolutely will be. Listen, if we can get all the way to Bilbao, I'll have you on extra every single week if we can talk about a European win, my friend. So I will give you that guarantee right now. But as you have rightly said, we are recording not long after the final whistle across in Sweden, Alan. We obviously do our post-match show on our Patreon site. It's always good to be able to try and take a little bit of a breath and maybe watch the game back and get back to be able to try and do it. But I'll be honest with you, I wanted to come on and record because I just thought it'll be great to be able to just have a really positive conversation, a fantastic win for us. Now, we have never beaten a Swedish team. We have never won across in Sweden. Both of those records are now in the bin. And overall, for me, an absolutely fantastic performance by Rangers and a very, very, very deserved win. If I had to complain about anything, it would be the fact that we did win by more. How are you feeling?
I'm the exact same. I actually couldn't believe it because before the game it was I would love to get out there with a draw, Cammy, and I had been reading all about their kind of tactical play and how well they were doing, and they were so far in their season, and obviously it's been tough, over the past couple of months for us. So obviously we'll get into the game and the detail itself, but absolutely phenomenal. I mean, this is the best I've seen Rangers playing for a long time. Just so controlled. And as you say, if there's one kind of a negativity, it's just the fact that we probably didn't win by as many. But it's just fantastic. Just a great feeling, Cammy, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I thought in the run-up to it, it was quite interesting because, as you rightly say, Malmo they're coasting towards winning the league. I think they're about 10 points clear, and there's like 2 games left, 3 or 4 games left to play or something like that. The last couple of games they've maybe dropped points or whatever. But listen, they've got the league in the bag, and there was some chatter, I think it's probably the nice way to say it, in terms of our record across there. The recent head-to-heads against them have been really tight. Draws or just 1-goal wins or what have you. A little bit of scar tissue for me of when we shouldn't have allowed them to beat us in the Champions League qualifiers when we obviously had the man advantage at Ibrox, Alan.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely right in saying Rangers have had a kind of stop-start launch of the season. We've obviously had the problems in terms of playing at Hampden. Thankfully, those are now behind us. We will talk a little bit more about that as we preview the Hibs game on Sunday. But going into it, I thought this will be a tough one. They're obviously, really in their rhythm, albeit the fact, obviously, the Europa League campaign is just kicking off for them. But, as I say, they play across the summer. They will be feeling confident being able to come into it. However, with less than, I think, about 90 seconds on the clock, a Cyril Dessers rounding of the keeper, doing hard work, and then it feels a little bit like missing an easier chance. He hits the base of the keeper's left-hand post. It falls perfectly in the rebound for Vajrami, and we are a goal up with, people barely probably just sitting down with their dinner. I'll be honest with you, Alan, you could not have scripted a better start for me. This is exactly what we wanted. I was hoping for a strong, positive and confident start, but being able to go a goal up so early on, it just settles the nerves so quickly. And I'll be honest with you, I think Malmo were absolutely shell-shocked at that point.
Yeah, and I think as well with me, Cammy, it was like we know what Cyril does, occasionally when he went round and you're thinking on another day it would have hit the outside of the post and went by. Obviously he could have squared it as well. But as you say, when that went in there, and then, you're right. And I think after that as well, I thought we'd done really well too in terms of pressing them. Rangers really, were really kind of not giving them any space at all. Obviously, as we go through, there'll be so many chances, but it was just like nothing that we've seen. we know this is all it's going to be time and patience. I've been telling everyone time and patience. We're going to have a really tough season ahead. It is going to take a while. The new players coming in, unlucky we've covered all of that before, Cammy. But it was as if as if we'd kind of fast forwarded, in terms of people kind of gelling as well, the way the team was playing and so on. And as you say, I think it rattled them. They looked really nervous too, because after that as well, Cammy, we were putting balls in their box and they were panicking and skying it. So, no, as I say, it was just really good. To be honest with you, going through, the only fault we had was just the fact that we missed chances. Defensively, I thought we looked so comfy. But all the time, and I don't know if it's even a bit like at Ibrox as well. We go one up, and I don't know about you, but we need a second. So I think all the way through we need the second. The more we miss chances, it's like, geez, but no, as I say, I don't think we could have asked for anything better. Another positive as well, it'll give people confidence. They're getting used to playing. But I think the manager as well, Cammy, surely that must take just another wee bit of pressure off of him as well. Do you know what I mean, in terms of all the kind of flack and all the stuff that's been going on? Because I think tactically too, I was really worried about down that left-hand side before the game. How are we going to do it? Will Sterling go out there and so on? Obviously, when the big Larry goes into the left, it was like, what's happening? But I think we surprised them tactically as well, Cammy. And so that was a real masterstroke, I think, by a big film, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, on that point, I mean, I agree with you. I think the defence was solid tonight. I fully expected, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this as well, that it would have been Sterling in at left back. Because obviously Jeffy suspended. Some issues we understand with passports or visas or some sort of problem with Igaman, he couldn't travel. And I thought, when the lineups came out, I was firstly surprised that it was Casemiro at left back.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say, Alan, that, we were a little bit concerned about the bench. There's obviously a smattering of the youth team within there, as the Europa League gives us license to include them within the squad. But when you were looking at probably some of the more consistent first teamers, you really didn't have a huge pick in there as well. Liam Balogun, Dijon Sterling obviously did make the bench because he didn't start. Ross McCausland, Kieran Dowell, Nicola Raskin. Leon King was in there, which I think is pretty much expected now as well, and a welcome return as well for Zach Lovelace. I'm really looking forward to seeing, hopefully, more of him as the league campaign goes on. But, to that point, and we'll talk about him now because we've mentioned that I thought Casemiro was fantastic. He had to do a shift in a position that is not entirely comfortable. He's obviously far more suited across on the right-hand side. I made mention, I think, on Flagship or one of our post-match shows, I think it was at the weekend, that the James Tavernier goal hopefully gives him a degree of confidence. There were a couple of shaky moments from Tavernier. I'm not going to say it was a perfect performance, but that back five, for me, Alan, just looked far more composed. And I think the crown in the jewel at the moment just now is the relationship that's building between John Souttar and Robin Proper.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been pretty critical, of Big Souttar in the past, kind of gets caught under the ball and so on. I thought tonight, Cammy, the amount of interceptions he put in, the amount of going up, just clearing it as you would want your centre half to do. And as you say, the two of them, there's definitely a relationship building between the two of them. There's a really nice kind of balance there as well. I think as well, what happened as well with the Casemiro kind of as well, I think because, as you say, he's playing out of position, but if you have got that mentality and you are, first and foremost, you know how to defend and position yourself, I think you can see, and you can see that the guy's got that, can't you? And then funnily enough, near the end, he suddenly goes up and if he hadn't leaned back, potentially could have scored, but it was brilliant. As I say, the one area that I really worried on, I was wondering even about maybe did we put on wee Fraser and, I don't know, but it worked out fine. I don't even think they had a proper shot at goal, really, did they, Cammy? So,
not a single shot on target. The only slight criticism that I would have of Jack Butland is a couple of times he made my heart miss a beat with some of his distribution. However, no, not a single shot on target. That's not to say, and that it was, an easy night for the defence. To your point, Alan, there was a couple of great blocks, one by John Suter from a long range shot in the second half.
Yeah.
And there was also another one as well, which I don't know if you'll remember, but it was from a header from a free kick. Now, ultimately, it got ruled out for offside. John Suter has no idea that was going to happen, but he's able to get himself into a great position and just make sure the ball goes absolutely nowhere near his own net.
He
And
did, yeah.
The other thing apart from that as well is that I just think when you start to look at that partnership, they're just starting to dictate a little bit more now in terms of, positionally where they're going, where they obviously want other players to be, in terms of not allowing the midfielders to drop too far back because they're pretty comfortable with the ball at feet. Proper, I think, does that really well. So, like you say, a really, really strong performance from them.
There was one wee bit as well, Cammy. Well, I've seen it a few times during the game and being an old slow centre half, but really impressed as well. A lot of talking as well, and you would see Proper and Suter, and they were continually look at the line where we move. But I thought what added to it as well was the midfield, the way they were kind of hunting in packs. And I know this team, typically, they were saying they were allowed to roam and get closer to the ball and work. But what we did very quickly is we surrounded them. So there was a few, maybe about 10, 15 nervous minutes second half down our right-hand side where they were really going down there. But apart from that, Cammy, even getting into the midfield and so on, I just thought the work ethic was really, really good too. So that helped to, in terms of making it solid and really stopping many of the chances, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Rangers' chances, Alan, because I don't think it is it is arrogant to say that we theoretically could have went in at half-time 4-0 up. Cyril Dessers, about midway through the first half, has a great opportunity. And he creates a little bit of space for himself. He should have been able to try and get a shot away. I will give him a wee bit of slack for that. However, there are two great chances following that. One for Vlavklav Cherny. Cyril Dess was involved again with a fantastic touch in the halfway line just to cushion the ball down for Bajrami. Bajrami puts across a wonderful defence splitting pass. Cherny is through. He has got all the time in the world. Alan, he can absolutely pick his slot. He puts it wide by the keeper's right-hand post. Really, really disappointing. And then just before the half-time whistle, it could have been 3 because Bajrami is through following a slide ball from Cyril Dessers. Dessers, again, excellent here. If you remember this opportunity, the Malmo player is looking to be able to try and control a bouncing ball. He goes to ground.
Mm-hmm.
Dessers understands he's not going to be able to control the ball, so he just lets the Malmo player do what he has to do. I think if he puts a foot in, I thought the referee, and I'll come back to him in just a moment, but the referee, I thought, is going to give a foul for that if Dessers just puts a foot in against him because he's on the deck already. He just lets the ball slip out from under him. He slides it through into Bajrami, who's running. Now, I've had a chance to watch this a couple of times. What Bajrami eventually does is he squares it back to Dessers.
He should have shot, man.
And I think exactly right. Everyone's screaming to him to shoot. It looks to me a little bit as if he adjusts his stride slightly, and I don't know whether or not he sees or is going to anticipate a slight bobble on the ball, and he has to adjust accordingly. But yeah, that should be a shot. So as much as we're sitting in that space of we need a second goal, we could have been getting at least 3-0 up at half time.
I've not turned into Colin, but I took a couple of wee notes, and I'm like 39 minutes, and I've got Cherny 1-on-1 round the goalkeeper, FFS. I don't know what that means, or hit the target, and then it's like great Dessers touch, as you said, and then the second one as well becomes the likes of the Bajrami one too, and it's like shoot, pass, as you say, rather than just actually, kind of trying to go left-hand side. But again, all that you've got in the back of your mind, Cammy, is we're doing so well, but we just need, because you've just always got that wee feeling, haven't you? I told you so, as we lose something up. And I thought we'll do a wee professional segue here into the referee. I thought we should have had at least a couple of penalties as well, Cammy, with some of the holding and so on within the box. But you can go on from there if you want, mate, yeah.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I thought the referee was consistently inconsistent tonight. He did book Mohamed Diamandi just after, I think it was about 10, 11 minutes, Alan, and I thought that's a problem. And again, we're maybe used to that Scottish the first 10, 15 minutes, you kind of get away with one. The referee obviously wasn't allowing that. And I will give him his credit because I think it was a foul and I think he was applying the letter of the law, so I don't have any issues with that. But the entire officiating team on that point, I don't think he was helped by his assistants out in the line because there was a couple of fouls out there where I thought, that's not great. And I'll come on to one in particular about Ross McCausland when we talk about the second half. But yeah, there's easily a couple of penalty decisions that should have been given for us. Now, we have been robbed already in Europe by a referee this season. And I'll be honest with you, I think that we're due some luck. This referee was not going to be the one to give it to us tonight. His VAR team were not going to give it to us either. But that being said, I don't want to moan too much about the ref because I'm more frustrated at our, wasted chances that we've had. We won tonight in spite of the referee and in spite of the penalties that should have been given. But you're just concerned, Alan, when you get to this level and you're seeing that type of officiating performance.
No, you're right. And it's just in terms of the chances too, okay, and we all know Ali occasionally would miss, maybe, I don't know, he would probably score 1 in 3 or whatever it would be. But again, that kind of added insult to injury to me as well, because you now suddenly see McCoy on talking and you're thinking to yourself, imagine the likes of him. Do you know what I mean? That game would have been done, Cammy, wouldn't it? It's...
Yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, listen, there's been a lot of people defending Cyril Dessers across the course of the last year, really. And we've been talking a lot about Alan McCoy and about how many chances he missed, and I think that's a perfectly fair argument. But for
big
me,
chances, big games, though.
It is. And I think, as we continue to grow and as we start to get into the proper meat of our Europa League campaign, we are going to come up against tougher opposition. I'm not being disrespectful to Malmo, and I'm certainly not downplaying the result tonight in our performance. But yeah, we need to be able to make sure that we're finishing these chances far more clinically and not being as wasteful, because we won't get as many against the likes of Lyon, against Man United, etc.
No, and I'm not jumping on this Dessers rubbish nonsense as well, Cammy. It's just frustrating. I thought he did really well. He actually did really well. It's just those things again, isn't it? Because I thought early on, tired a wee bit later on, but it was actually linking up, as you say, he was putting balls through, getting in there. But we just need to go that next step, whether it becomes January or whatever. You just need someone who's going to, do you know what I mean, maybe score 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3. And again, when it comes to these big pressure games, this is the difference, isn't it, that gets you over to the next stages?
We get in at half-time, Alan, and I think Rydström, and it's been interesting because hearing the post-match presser comments, he is not a happy bunny. He wouldn't have been a happy bunny at half-time, and I'll be honest with you, I think Malmo started to respond well to that pressure in the start of the second half. They did start very brightly. Now again, there were a lot of good phases of play. They did start to create openings. However, nothing really came of them, and Jack Butland wasn't really tested. But again, coming back to that, a second goal would calm the nerves. We just need to be able to get through it. And the other thing I want to talk about as well is how well Rangers controlled the game against Malmo, because we're not going to be able to dominate for 90 minutes. I would love it if we could. It's just simply not going to happen. And we have seen periods in games where we have either started brightly and then we've started to take our foot off the gas. I don't really think that happened at all in the first half, but I do think it happened in probably the first 15 to 20 of the second.
Yes.
And that's something that we need to make sure that we work on. But we got through that period. And I think, again, there was another couple of chances, half chances I would probably give them credit for, where, Czerny gets a great cross in for Tom Lawrence, but slightly behind him, he hits it over the bar. A few minutes after that as well, there's a really great free kick put in by Vladimir Czerny, and Dessers gets a great contact on it. It's like a kind of hook swinging, contact he gets on it. Forces he was offside as the end result. But again, just great for him to be able to try and use his body and be able to try and create.
And it was a really good save with the keeper, wasn't it? Because he didn't know it was off at the time. Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. We will come on to the bench now, because with about 20 to go, Ross McCausland comes on for Vladimir Czerny. And I mentioned before, Alan, about where the referee was not helped by his assistants. He's almost wiped out. Just on the halfway line, I think it was Pena that took him out. It was not just an obstruction. he almost left out a trailing leg, so if he didn't block him, he was going to get him the second time.
Yes, yeah.
McCausland takes a really sore one. However, I want to talk about that, within itself, because not only does he take a decent hit at that point, it's left a bit on him. He's got up, he's carried on with it. He actually should score from a chance from a Bajrami cross that comes in. Dessers had been unlucky with a shot where, well, I say unlucky, he created it brilliantly, peeled off his man, and he should be forcing a save. The Bajrami cross comes in for Ross McCausland. He's got the goal at his mercy. I think he should do well. But I mention these things not as criticisms. Actual fact, I want to use them as positives, because aside from how he's handled the physical aspect of the game, and he's missed that chance, he's not let his head get impacted by it.
No.
The goal that he scores to be able to give the Rangers second was, I think, reminiscent of Stephen Davis in the League Cup final. I love shots that go in, just as they creep in by the post. But the work beforehand, Alan, where there's a dropping ball, McCausland goes in nice and strong. He commits to being able to get the ball. Takes a couple of touches to be able to set himself. And at this point, and you can tell with his body language, he has literally one thing on his mind. He manages to find that gap, just get it into the inside
left foot,
of the keeper's left-hand post. It's so Stephen Davis-esque. It's wonderful to see. So I'm sure that Davo has probably sent him a text straight after the game saying, well done, son. It's very reminiscent of my goals. But I'm absolutely delighted for McCausland for that.
Yeah, I think although knowing Davo, he's probably told him he should have been doing that earlier. Do you know what I mean? But you're right, the wee man. And what I noticed as well is kind of jumping back to, it was Sunday, wasn't it? He came on Sunday, and I saw a different Ross McCausland again. And he was going by people. He was really bursting in. He was taking chances, and to me, he extended that obviously into today. With this great high quality goal, but. No, you're right. But to actually, because there was quite a few of them, around him as well. But the wee man had decided, I'm going for it. It's bouncing there. And the finish. And, I think I've moved now from Wishaw to Straven. I think my pals over in Wishaw probably heard me, Cammy, when that one went in there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm absolutely delighted for him. I think that it is fair to say that, again, we did have limited resources on the bench. And for McCausland to be able to come in, I think that, he's had criticism. He has not played. I think we sometimes overthink how much Ross McCausland has actually played. And it feels like that a bit. But there's maybe an added and maybe a hidden compliment within that, because we need to see him now as a first-team regular, which, as far as I'm concerned, he is. And, again, people will have criticised and said, he needs to do better with some of these things. But listen, just a great goal for him. His confidence absolutely was sky high after that. And everybody's heart rate, I think, just went down several notches at that stage.
Oh, it did. And at the times I've been with the wee man, I'm like, for goodness sake, beat someone, and so on. But the one thing he has done is he has learned. If you remember when he first started, I think in one of the European games, he didn't backtrack and he exposed and so on. And that was, funny enough, when he came on there, I was actually thinking to myself, this is good, because they've been going down that left-hand side. And the wee man, he has got a great work rate as well, Cammy. So, okay, he didn't see as much of that, but it does show you he has improved. And as you say, I think a lot of it's to do with confidence as well. This can only add to it now, can't it?
And it, you know what, it should. And I think that's where, the manager has said before, Alan, that he expects to see his best Rangers team coming into play in October, November. And I'm being honest with you, I'm starting to see the trend going in that direction. And it needs to see players being able to contribute. And Ross McCausland absolutely did that with his 20 minutes or so that he got this evening. The rest of the game, Alan, I feel, and I want to come back to the point I made earlier on, was about control. It was about us not doing anything too daft, not doing anything risky. There were other chances. Nasawiro actually had a really good chance from a ball from Bajrami, and he probably should have done a bit better. I'm not holding that against him. There was some pragmatic use, I think, of substitutions. Tom Lawrence goes off for, I think it was for, sorry, I beg your pardon, Lawrence goes off for Raskin. I think the best thing I can say now is that we've used the subs as and when we've had to, rather than it being a bit of a scramble and feeling a little bit desperate. Sterling did come on. He came on for Bajrami. And again, that's just very much been able to try and see out the game as well. No real threat from Malmo in the closing stages. And again, I don't want to downplay that because that makes it sound as if Malmo were not great competition. I am not underestimating them. I feel that we played far better than them this evening. And the most important thing, again, as much as we'll love the clean sheets and everything else as well, is just that defensive performance where it wasn't hear 'em, scare 'em. It was controlled. They looked like they knew where each other were. And again, considering the fact that we've had to effectively draft in a left back to go in there, there were no gaps as far as I was concerned. I thought Casemiro was fantastic for the full game.
Yeah, there's a unity there, as you say, between the obviously kind of back four, then the midfield as well. And there was this, I don't know whether it's the old when you're playing in the chess game, you don't really notice it, but if you're looking, into it, but it's as if they had known this team are going to come, they're going to put up here in numbers, but we'll bide our time, because the amount of times we went on, God, I'm going to go all modern now and talk about the transition, but we were quite comfy. We're okay because we've got the back, and we're kind of defending all right. We've got it here. We're going to get chances, and it showed you how even during the game, okay, laterally as well, but we could kind of pick up. They're going to push forward. That's fine. We'll hit them in the counter, and it just looked. I don't know. I mean, we've had some really nervous kind of last maybe 10, 15 minutes in big European games, but we just looked more comfy, Cammy.
Yeah, we did. And again, it was about being able to try and see the game. Jack Butland got a booking in the 94th minute, which, again, I'll be honest with you, using a little bit of game management / shithousery, I will take it any day of the week.
Alan McGregor would never have done that, wouldn't he?
No, he would not. He would not. Alan McGregor denied his red cards, for Christ's sake. Yeah. But listen, all in all, a wonderful evening. I think the if you're coming out after a game, especially a Europa League opener, where there's maybe a little bit of scar tissue from, being cheated as far as I'm concerned out your Champions League qualifiers, and you're playing against an opposition that are really well set in a rhythm domestically. I don't know how much attention the manager would have paid to our record against Swedish clubs and across in Sweden. No. Again, all of that nonsense that was happening in social media from, their mob about, we've missed you and all of that kind of stuff as well. I think it's all just noise, if I'm being perfectly honest. But most important thing is the way how the Europa League format is going to be this season. You're going to have to be able to see where you can take points. I think, as you mentioned at the top of the show, if you were to say to me, can you take a draw, I would have probably taken a draw beforehand. So the fact that we're sitting here talking afterwards, lamenting the fact that it wasn't 4 or 5-0 is beyond the best result we could have hoped for.
Yeah, and we're not going to get over the top because we do know the old time and patience, and it is going to take time with these new players and so on. But the good thing is, Cammy, you can actually tick off and go, yeah, partnerships are beginning to form here. This is good, a big European night away from home. Yeah, they've looked quite comfy. This will just add to and I know the manager's saying, by the time we get to October, unfortunately, as you know, usually by then we're wanting a new manager and things, that nonsense. But I think this just gives us, I don't know, just a wee bit more of we are actually going in the right direction now. We just need to keep with it. And as ever, Cam, it's just a case of go on, and we need to get a run of games as well, because there's nothing better, isn't there, than getting, a number of wins, clean sheets and so on. And it's just a case of maybe getting some of the players back as well, in terms of injuries and, kind of strengthening the squad, because we're going to need a hang of a lot, obviously over the next couple of months anyway, in terms of the number of games and so on.
Well, you mentioned the manager there, and I'm keen to kind of get your thoughts on this, because there was, some chat during the week, and he was asked about it at the press conference about the Anderlecht job that apparently he's been linked with. And I'll be honest with you, Alan, one of the strongest responses I think I've seen from the manager in terms of he was absolutely committed to the job at Rangers. He said in there, he was committed to the project. And I think that was interesting, because he's also mentioned, elsewhere that, we will need transfer windows to get the squad to where he wants it to be. I do think that is acceptable, because we do have to have, some strong changes. And and we are not the finished article by any stretch. But it was interesting to me to see how quickly he jumped on that. Now, I suppose the slight addition to that now is that this will do nothing but potentially ramp up interest in him from elsewhere. I don't believe whatsoever he's looking to be able to have his head turned.
No.
Managers are either sacked or they're poached. That's the life in football. But if we were to get to a stage where our manager is generating a lot of interest from other clubs, the only reason that will happen is because he's been successful and he's winning things. So right now, as things stand, I fully believe he is committed to the project. But I was keen to get your thoughts on that conversation, how he answered it, and where you are with him at the moment.
It comes across because he is his experience, isn't he? In terms of the time that he has spent kind of coaching or managing elsewhere. So he's not like a guy who's kind of come in here quickly and want to move on. When you think of even the kind of the money that he had before, in terms of the kind of some of the kind of posts that he had, I don't think he's at that stage in his life. So to me, and he has consistently talked about it will take time, it's going to be a project and so on. He knows, we'll not even go into all the off-field stuff, but he knows as well about the average age as well and how that will fit in the future to how things go. I mean, again, as you know, we could be surprised, but no, I think he seems a kind of mature guy. I think when he talks as well, kind of nice and objective and kind of calm. Again, it's that whole, the accent comes, sometimes the way things come across and so on, but I really think we're doing well, with him, and I certainly feel that it does look as if he is going to be here. I think the fact that they extended his contract as well, Cammy, kind of shows as well that in terms of the overall plan, that's what we're looking for. And to be honest with you, we can't keep just doing rip it up and start again anyway. So to me, keep going, time and patience. I know it's the old Rangers da. I'm not happy clapping at all, but to me, we just need to. When you think of everything in the round, we've just got to kind of keep going, and hopefully, things will, as you guys get more used to it, as people come back and so on, we will see some progress. Maybe do a wee bit in January as well to improve in just some areas that we think will just take us to that wee different level. And I think that's all that we can do, Cammy. And because of the whole football, the kind of financial fair play thing and so on, we're not in a world now where suddenly someone can come in and before you know it, we can just sprinkle 5 or 6 internationalists. So, no, as I say, I hope I'm not wrong, but I personally think we just need to kind of stick in there, and obviously he will stay. I would say, to be honest with you, this time next year, Cammy, that's when, we look to see how far we have came, in terms of where we want to go. And to be honest with you, I honestly think realistically, there's going to be something. We're going to win a shiny thing at least. Do you know what I mean? If things just keep kind of move from now through to the end of the season.
Well, we will talk about that now, actually, Alan, because we have got 3 home games coming up, starting with Hibs on Sunday, Leon next Thursday, and St Johnstone, I think it is, on the following Sunday with that crazy kickoff at 8 o'clock. But the most important thing right now is that we can just continue to focus on taking it as one game at a time. The players and the club should absolutely take a boost from the performance in Sweden. And the great news, as the club released, I think it was early on Thursday, was that the Copeland will be fully reopened. So a little bit of a soft re-entry back to Ibrox against Dundee, but it's going to be great to have a full house again against Hibs on Sunday. I'm really, really looking forward to this. And it's another great opportunity for the manager to continue building that momentum that he's spoken about. He does want to be able to take it one game at a time. He obviously talks about the league as being a marathon, but it's just going to be great to be able to get back into, again, let's say a fully reopened Ibrox.
That's all that we can do. We just need to do this kind of one game at a time. Hibs, it's always a good atmosphere anyway, kind of Hibs at Ibrox, so it should be really good, obviously, on Sunday. Then you've got your European game, haven't you, coming up, Cammy, as well, your Thursday night under the lights, and it won't be like Hampden, the last European game. We're talking, capacity in there, rocking, and all that we need is a wee bit more of a kind of feel good. He talked as well about the connection between the fans and the players and how that kind of works both ways. And if we can get back to that again, get to Sunday, Cammy, if we do play anywhere near our potential, get the 3 points again. And again, even if it's just a 1-0 or whatever it would be, but get the 3 points, keep that winning going, get Ibrox rocking the next Thursday. And again, it's just a case of kind of doing what we're doing, you know.
One of the things that's going to be interesting, I'm keen to see, you know, how we manage this across the coming weeks, Alan, is that, again, that fixture schedule will start to, you know, get pretty hectic. We're going to be getting into, you know, like a couple of games a week, which obviously we've got across the course of the next fortnight as well. And one of the things that's going to be really important is how he manages his resources.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, watching the game against Malmo, where you saw, I thought he played pretty well, Tom Lawrence. But you also know, I mean, the manager does like him. There's no getting away from that.
Yeah.
We were also told this week that Cortez has now got a knock, which is going to keep him out for another few weeks. Of course he has, because it's Rangers. So we know about the injury issues. We know where those challenges lie.
Mm-hmm.
And before I come on to a specific player, which I do want to get your opinion on, it's going to be interesting to see as to how he has to make sure that he gets the best out of his team, but he's going to have to be able to try and spread that out slightly. I would like to see, for example, Egeman start against Hibs on Sunday. I wanted him to start against Dundee, but he's obviously not played this week, and my hope is that he's going to be nice and fresh. Dessers has done a lot of running. He's done a lot of work against Malmo. I'd be interested to see as to whether or not he swaps him over. We will obviously see some changes in the defence. I thought, you know, against Malmo, Connor Barron and Diomande were, you know, really good. Connor Barron, for me, just goes about his work really efficiently, but he covers a lot of ground. He reminds me, if you could probably understand this connotation, but he reminds me a little bit of Stuart McCall in terms of the ground that he covers.
I've said that consistently. He's just a young Stuart McCall. You know, he doesn't do any of the silky stuff and so on, but he's always involved. He gets the ball, he moves it. You know, he does that kind of thankless stuff as well. I think he's an absolute cracking wee player. You know, obviously still learning, you know, his trade and so on, but my goodness, I think we've got a cracker with him, yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting because, you know, if I was some of those players like Czerny, for example, I'm going to be honest with you. My hope is that his attitude is that he cannot wait for Hibs on Sunday, because given the fact that, you know, he wasn't too bad on Thursday night, but I would also like to have seen him been able to finish off that chance that you mentioned about another couple where I think he could do a little bit better. You know, I would want him to be able to say, look, you know, I want another game to come around because I know I can play better. I know I can finish chances like the one that I had. You know, I want to be able to get my teeth stuck into it.
I think that's where, like you've said as well, getting the players back and getting the squad and using them properly. Because I noticed Czerny in a few games, like Parkhead as well, even maybe on Sunday, but, you know, in a few of the games that I've seen him playing, he's just getting brushed aside. He loses the ball and then suddenly that's it. He did play, as you say, better against Malmo, you know, which was good, and he lasted longer too. But ultimately, I think that's what we need, don't we? We need players thinking, and by the way, if I'm not at it here, someone else can come in. So it does two things. It kind of gives them a wee rest as well, but it also keeps them on their toes, isn't it? To know that we're now hitting these standards, we're playing in some, as it goes on as well, it'll become more important. So they have got to do better, because there's nothing worse, Cammy, isn't there, if someone's not playing well, and they just consistently think, well, who else is going to come in? So I think that's where he needs to use his pool kind of well too. I feel the whole James Tavernier thing, I'll not go into that one as well, but if he wasn't the captain, I actually feel at times you could do a look-see, to be honest with you. You're struggling a wee bit now. We will actually rest you and we'll put in, I don't know, Sterling at right back, or, you know, the other lad, you know. Again, there's this, it's like a bit of an affront because he's the captain, but to me, I think if they do it properly and you sit down with people and say, look, I'm doing this because it's giving you a bit of a rest and so on, I think that's the way they're going to have to do it, Cammy.
Yeah, I agree. And the player that I wanted to talk about specifically with you, Alan, is Yanis Haji. Haji played for the B team against the Huddersfield B team during the week. As it turns out, played very well, was pivotal in the game, and got the winner in a 3-2 victory. I'm interested to get your thoughts in terms of his current situation, because at the moment just now, he won't feature for the first team due to contractual reasons. If he plays, we have to be able to give him a wage increase. He's in that spot where he's far too good to play for the Rangers B team. And I'm not being disrespectful to Huddersfield. I just mean it from a perspective of, he should be, right? He was playing at the Euros only a few months ago. And he is capable of more. Now, I'm not saying that he's a world beater. I'm not saying that if he was to come back into the first team, things would, revolutionise and it would go into a different level. I don't mean like that. But I think it's interesting because, we have major issues with our youth team set up. It's fine playing the odd friendly here and there, but it's not competitive. And
No.
I also feel that if he's there, he's taking up a space for a youngster and potentially harming their development because he's effectively taking up a slot that, by and large, he's too good to be able to occupy. For me, Alan, I think about the bench that we discussed earlier on against Malmo. I think about some of the players that are on that bench that, as far as I'm concerned, you've got a few water carriers in there. You're looking towards guys, like Kieran Dowell, etc. If the manager's going to include him, then I think that there is going to have to be times where he's going to have to rely on him.
Yeah.
If Yanis Haji has got the correct attitude, and I'm not saying he has, this is just purely my own opinion and to a certain extent speculation, surely the easiest way now to be able to try and resolve this situation is to get everyone around the table and say, look, we need to renegotiate the circumstances within this. Otherwise, unless we can get rid of you in January, and that's a decent way off, there was not a lot of attraction for him from clubs and interest, during the summer window. His own agent came out and said that. So if we're now in this situation, do we look to be able to try and get him back involved? And if he plays football for us until May next year, then okay, grand. If he's able to attract interest, if he's able to, generate some degree of value, if he can contribute, then, we'll happily sign off on a deal to see him go. But between now and then, right now, I think that there is a growing argument, which is entirely justifiable, to say we have a resource that we are not using when we need to use it.
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to.
I mean, I don't know how much he's on at the moment and potentially what it ramps up to when he plays 100 or whatever.
Well, basically, the situation is that his wage would increase by $5,000 a week, which, again, when you talk about football finances and everything else as well, will feel small. But you're also saying, well, how long do we pay that for? Do we pay that for the remainder of his contract? That could be, easily over 7 figures. So when you start to add it up, it's not small change we're talking about.
I mean, surely I remember my first sales negotiation course. God, this is way back. And I know it wasn't done in, I don't know, an old kind of blackboard or whatever. But I remember the first thing they say is, first rule is don't negotiate unless you really have to. But I think we have to anyway. But surely, I think he did come on the record and say they would be prepared to. But surely, as you say, it makes sense. If we're paying them whatever anyway, sitting on his backside or playing in B team, we're as well actually trying to use him. Again, with him, he should have to do a wee bit because there has to be a come and go, Cammy. Even if he comes back with, okay, if you give me an extra 2.5 or 2 or whatever. But surely that must make sense, especially the way we are financially as well as a club. And for him, there's more chance of people coming in and wanting, if he does ultimately want to go, Cammy, if he's in the Rangers team and he puts on some good performances and as you say, even just having him on the bench, because it could even be bring him on for 20 minutes and see what the wee man can do, It just, unless his attitude's stinking and we don't know. But I don't know, Cammy, that seems to be the kind of most sensible way of doing it. In the old days, here we go, in the reserves, guys from first team or whatever, if they were injured, even Big Greg would go and play, but they would only play to get themselves back in and then back into the first team. Good for experience for the young guys, but as you say, consistently having him in there, I don't think it adds real value to the B team. And surely with some of these European games as well, Cammy, with his name as well, if he played in a couple of them, scored a couple of goals or whatever, it is surely going to put potentially, people looking for him if he wants to leave, or ultimately if he turns it around, adds value to us and he stays fine, It just seems a bit, we're probably being too simplistic, but do you not think that's the way of doing it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, do you know what? I think I mean, we obviously don't know the inner
We
workings.
don't know. No.
And I would probably question the fact that if his attitude was poor, I don't think he'd even be involved within the B team. The manager, I think, set his stall out pretty clearly with that with Todd Cantwell. And again, I'm not saying that in terms of where Cantwell was at and his overall demeanour. I don't, again, we don't know that either. But I've just got a feeling that if he felt that Haji was going to be a disruption, he wouldn't even be near the youths either.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on the assumption that he is keen to play. He flip-flopped a little bit in terms of statements throughout the summer and stuff. So if we're in this situation now, I suppose really what we're trying to say is there any way that we can negotiate terms that would be mutually beneficial for everybody?
Because if you think about Jamie and all that, who I think he's doing really well, he's looking the business and all that and creating and so on. But again, Haji surely when he was playing well, again it was great to help to unlock defences and create things, Cammy, yeah.
Yeah, and if we could move Bajrami into a 10 and rely on him, and then we potentially backfill that left-hand side even with Yanis Haji, then I still think he'd be able to contribute. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see as to what happens. But we can only move from one game to the next, and that will be at 12 o'clock on Sunday afternoon at Ibrox. And if you're heading along, folks, I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. And most importantly, I hope that Rangers get 3 points as well. That will do us for Extra this week. Davey will be back with you on Flagship on Monday to unpack the Hibs game and share his thoughts on what we're all hoping is a strong performance and a victory. Thank you to the executive producers, Mike Lee and Paul Miles. But most importantly, thank you to my guest this week, Alan Bradley. Alan, as I say, if we get to Bilbao at the end of the season, and it's because you've been on Extra after every single Europa League win, then trust me, my friend, just keep your diary free. That's all I'm saying.
The thing is, you and Hoggy helped me out with Seville anyway, so I mean, you've set a precedent anyway, Cammy, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, as I say, just a quickie as well. Several months since I've been on, we have this great performance in Europe. That's all I'm saying, Cammy.
Yeah, there's definitely a link. Yeah, fair enough. If you'd like to hear more from us, from myself, Alan, and a whole host of fantastic podders covering not just all of the Rangers news every single day, but also all of our pre-match and post-match pods and a whole range of content, some Rangers related, some football related, some not even Rangers or football related, head on over to patreon.com/Heart and Hand and you'll get loads of great content in there for only a couple of quid a month. We'll speak to you again on Monday. Thanks so much for listening, folks. Speak soon. Bye-bye.